Oh my goodness, I love Dr. Tiffany Brown-Bush so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation with her around love and connection for our final episode this month. She just, I think, brought all of it full circle, talking about self-love. I know that sounds trite sometimes, but it is, I
So
think,
important.
the most difficult thing on the planet to do.
Yeah, really hard for women to do, especially, and vital, and especially during these times, folks. Debbie and I both ended the episode saying we felt like we just had a therapy session. This is what this is. It's reminding you of how to care for yourself and that you do deserve it. And boy, if nothing else, learn about the good girl tax, because that was an epic revelation for me. So,
yeah.
Dr. Tiffany Brown-Bush.
Yippee!
Right.
The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DiManno. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
All right, welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We're glad you're joining us. And we have our good friend and co-team member, Dr. Tiffany Brown-Bush, with us today. She is a diversely trained traditional naturopath doctor, a licensed neuropsychotherapist who specializes in ADHD, brain health, anxiety, dysregulated nervous system, and dementia. She's the creator of the Doc Brown-Bush method, which is a three-pronged approach to brain, body, and mind to deeply and sustainably help you heal. She has 24 years experience in wellness and healing, and we are so grateful to have you back with us again, Dr. Brown-Bush.
Thank you so much, Marci. That was fantastic, by the way.
A lot of words in there that I tried to say correctly. We took a few out. There's a lot more to her bio, and you can look her up and find out more about it.
Yeah. Thank you, though. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we just met Dr. Tiffany Brown-Bush a few months ago, and I fell in love with her, and it is Love Month, Love and Connection Month. So we had asked her if she would be on the board for Cour, and so she is. And so she's back to help us out with this discussion today on self-love. And this is a big one. This is a difficult one for me. I think this is a difficult one, especially for women. And I think this is a difficult one during these hard times. This is a little bit of a chaotic, crazy period for a lot of people right now on many emotional roller coasters. And so we felt like it was appropriate to have this conversation today. So, Dr. Tiffany, if you wouldn't mind maybe giving us just some definitions of self-love. Like what does that mean to love yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a timely conversation with everything that's happening. And I do think, especially coming out of the holidays, the first part of the year, I think sometimes people can be, having a really good time and maybe not be in the rhythms of self-care and focusing on loving on themselves. And it's kind of like the first of the year, a lot of these resolutions or visions or things that people will have are because it's like, oh, I need to like lean back into caring for myself and loving on me. And, I've done for so many, especially women, especially parents. And so for us to all kind of enter this year with so much going on between, the political landscape, but also all of what that loss and devastation that occurred with the fires in California. And just it has been a really bumpy start to this year where I think it's really, people are just trying to, for Maslow's hierarchy of needs, some people are at the bottom right now and they didn't
Yes.
expect to be, you know, just like, do I
Yes.
have shelter? You know, what's going on? How do I get to food? My home is gone, or I've lost my job, or my friends are
Yes.
scared, or my family's feeling threatened. And so
Yeah.
I think we didn't expect this, and it may not be top of mind for people at this point to be
Yes.
thinking about, like, how do I lean into
Right.
self-love and self-care. And I will oftentimes make them more synonymous. I will oftentimes say, you know,
Mhm.
self-love looks like self-care,
Yes.
Mm.
right?
Well,
um
because as women, we feel like, oh, are you're being narcissistic or right? Like all the things because, women
Right.
get to,
selfish.
yeah,
Right.
get to feel guilty about that, right? And
Hmm.
so it ends up in this tricky sort of spiral, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yes.
That's why
Yeah.
that metaphor of putting your mask on is first, your own mask first. It's so because almost society will say, "Oh no, you take care of your child first." But if you don't care for yourself, you are no good to anyone. And a lot does fall on us as women, as mothers, as the matriarchy, as the people who are trying to. I mean, we hold up society, frankly,
Hmm.
and that's a lot. That's a
Yes.
lot. And you've got to take care of yourself or again, you're not able to show up in your best self when you're exhausted, emotionally broken, and just tired, whatever, not getting enough sleep, not eating right, not taking care of your body, all the stuff.
Hmm. All the things. Yeah. Yeah. I talked a lot last year, and I don't think I was able to bring it to this conversation when we met previously about the good girl health tax.
Mm,
Mm.
And this idea of, so many women have a tendency to people please, and this tendency to caretake, and this tendency to self-sacrifice, and
Yeah.
we oftentimes will have messaging within our own histories and our own families of, like, you know, you are supposed to put everyone first, or you are
Yes.
selfish. You're
Yes.
doing something wrong and bad. It's not just imagined, and we're not just making it up. And then that the consequences that, you know, the research has caught up to our reality of, there are health consequences. There is a health
Yes.
tax, so to speak, for
Yes.
women when you engage in this mindset and this approach, and you say, well, I'll get to me eventually.
Yeah.
I'll
yeah.
tolerate my boundaries being violated. I'll tolerate, you know, not speaking up and keeping the peace. I won't make time for my workout. I'll let, you know,
Yeah.
my husband call a 911 emergency to take care of my 25-year-old adult child, and I won't do the health related thing, right, that I was planning to do.
Yeah.
And then that has a consequence for
Yeah.
us. And so Gabor, Dr. Mate, has
Yes.
actually been involved in this being like considered like that health tax for
Love
women
Health
in
him.
tax.
particular.
I hadn't heard
Mhm.
that before. Good girl
Yeah.
health tax.
Good girl health
I
Yeah.
mean,
tax. Yeah.
Well, and then, the autoimmune,
Yes.
statistics in women, and is it
Yes,
like
are astounding.
60% of
Yeah.
women now,
Yeah.
have some
Yep.
sort of autoimmune, right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
Gabor might say, like, "Well, why is that?" Right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Because, yeah, and
yeah.
then he would answer the question as, yeah, repressed emotions and
yeah,
Yeah.
lack of prioritizing self,
Right.
and
yeah.
I
Perfectionism,
perfectionism, yep,
right? Trying
inner
to be the
critic.
perfect mom, the perfect wife, the
Yeah.
perfect
And
employee, probably working, right? Like all the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
as you went through all of those things where you're talking about how this manifests, I'll take care of myself later. I won't do this. I'll show up for that. One thing I want to point out, because you're just describing me so well at me in the past, and I am shifting out of that. I'm very intentionally working on shifting out of that. But one thing
Hmm.
I'll say is for me, it's certainly not. I didn't have that awareness. It wasn't like, oh, I'll put myself. No, it's just that the messaging is, I knew that to be the good girl, I just did it. I was the martyr. And so what I was aware of was I'm doing the right thing. Look at me, I'm the good girl. Like I had that feeling more, not like, oh, this is going to come at a cost to me. That awareness wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so I love that you express it that way. And I think for your generation and younger generations, that's clear. Like there is a cost, and we do look at it more clearly. And that's where then you're like, well, of course there's a cost if you put yourself
Mm-hmm.
last all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I love that you highlighted that, because I don't think I think dysfunction isn't always obvious to the
yeah.
person that is in it, right?
Right.
I think it's, you don't realize, you just know that you feel tired, or you feel burnt out, or you feel anxious, or you can't sleep, or you have an autoimmune disorder, or your digestion is a wreck, or you have so much
Yeah.
Yes.
pain. That is how this shows up, right? Why
Yes.
am I so tired? Or, or you
Yeah.
feel resentment. That's
Yeah.
usually a red flag. Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
resentment and guilt, those two are usually an indicator that
So
something's
fun.
bad.
Yes.
Yeah, right. But you're
And
you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and your body is keeping the score,
It
right? Whether
is.
Yes.
you, right? And
But connecting the dots is
Yeah.
like
yes.
so good. It's the awareness. It's like I did this and this is, and or this is how I'm showing up and this is the result. So that's such an
Right.
important, again, all comes back to awareness.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's always like that with anything, right? It's just acknowledging that something is awry, right?
Hmm.
Something
Yeah.
is happening, and
Yeah.
it is really hard. And I think you're right. Generationally, I think things have
Yeah.
started to shift. But
Hmm.
Yes.
I
Thank
do have,
goodness.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think the messaging is out there. We can't miss it. It's all over social media. I think
Yeah.
people come in to me and they're like, I learned about this, and my boundaries and assertiveness and
Yeah.
perfectionism and being a good girl. I learned about this on social media, and I think this applies to me, so they'll come
Yes.
in. But I do think a lot of women, because I have a large portion of like perimenopausal ADHD women, right,
Hmm.
who are in corporate America and doing their thing. And they still are, the messaging is very ever present for them.
Yeah.
They don't always, like you said, they don't always know that they're doing it. And
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they're shifting into menopause, because this is a really big time where women's brains are changing, there's a remodeling
Hmm.
process because of the hormones. Um, then the hormones going into menopause, it's like, okay, so that's done now. You're not supposed to be carrying a child anymore. Like, you get to do your thing. Like the
Right.
brain just kind of rewires, and they realize, I don't like how my husband treats me, or I don't enjoy that my
Yes.
child is so dependent on me, and I hate this job. Like, they start having all these awarenesses, and they
Mm-hmm.
have, Hashimoto's, or they have some other, something else, some pain syndrome, and they aren't always aware that these things are connected, like you're saying, Marci, to like how they're showing up, like
Yeah.
saying yes to their mom when they want to say no, or
Yeah.
all these different things. So that
Yeah.
awareness is a big piece. And I do think like my 20 somethings are a little bit more aware, my early 30s, but they still, I don't
Mhm.
know, it's the biology of this. they
Yeah.
they
Well, it's
still
it's
don't know.
it's
Yeah.
what it's what women were born to do. Like
Mhm.
we're supposed to be nurturers, right? Like if
Mhm.
let's just be clear, like if we left it up to our husbands to, like, and I'm not knocking men. There's some amazing freaking men
Yeah.
right now who are doing this work, but I
Mhm.
think they probably have to work at being nurturing. That's not how
Mhm.
they're wired. We are
Mhm.
wired to be this way, and that's not a bad
Mhm.
thing, right?
Mhm.
Not a bad thing. It's just to understand that there are limitations with it, right? Like you
Mhm.
don't have to push yourself until you're laying in bed, and which is what
Right.
happened to me actually. Like it's
Mhm.
corporate, 30 years pushing hard, don't eat, don't sleep, don't like none of the things, and just couldn't get out of bed one day and
Right.
couldn't figure out what
Yeah.
was wrong with me. So why else do you think this is that is so hard for women to feel unlovable?
Mm. So why is it we have a hard time with feeling like maybe we're making a choice that would seem unlovable,
Yeah,
make
yeah,
us less lovable to the people.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
yeah.
is it like women think, oh, well, if I'm, but I'm not skinny enough, I'm not doing all the things, then I'm just not lovable. If I'm not working hard enough, I'm not being the best parent.
hmm
I mean, for me particularly, this was all part of me not feeling like I was lovable. And then ultimately,
Yeah.
what happens in that scenario is because you can't love yourself, you're going outward and you're looking like,
hmm
I need someone to satisfy this. I didn't have very loving parents, so this was a natural thing for me to go find relationships and people who would support me and like, no, 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 you're beautiful. We love you. Like all those things. And it took me a long time until I had to crash where I didn't have a choice but to go inward.
Yeah,
Right.
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, great question, and then great illustration of your journey. And I think what we would say about what you just described, and I think all of us could relate to that, but what we would say psychologically about what you just described is because of a lack of healthy attachment, maybe with your parents, you develop
Yes.
Mm.
like a striver part, right? Like
Yep.
we're going to look at this from like a parts perspective. A part of you learned that if you work really hard, you might be able
Yep.
to get your needs met in the
Yeah.
outside world or get
Mm.
approval, right?
I'm
And
a
that,
3 on the Enneagram, and that's because
oh,
of that's the wounding. Yeah, so I
yeah,
mean, that's a whole nother thing. I don't know if you know
whole thing.
Enneagrams, but yeah,
Yeah, I do. I
but
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
some the achiever, like everybody's got to
Yeah.
go wake up. That's what we do because I won't be loved if I just don't get all those things accomplished in a day,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Well, you couldn't evidently inherently get the love that you need just
Right.
because of who you were. You couldn't
Right.
inherently receive what you deserved
Yes.
just
Mm.
being their child, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you figured out, which is to your point earlier, a strength that you could figure it out. You figured out how to get what you needed. You
Yeah.
Yeah.
figured out how to meet the requirements of your environment. So we would say that a dysfunctional part that was quite functional in some ways had to
Yeah.
develop
Yeah.
because you couldn't just be cherished and adored and loved just
Yep.
because you were who you were, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, and then once that young part figures the rules out of her world, this is a striving is also something that society, especially more of a patriarchal society, really approves of, right? And
Mhm.
so doing more, getting more, working hard, you get
Yes.
patted on the head or stroked on the back for that. And so then
Right.
it gets you all the things you need. And so you are now being driven by a 6-year-old part, right?
Yes.
You were
Yes.
an adult
Yes.
running your life
Yes.
from 6-year-old need, right? And
Yes.
so when you ask, well, then why are we afraid to be unlovable? We are deathly afraid as a 6-year-old, dependent on grown-ups, to
Right.
be unlovable, right?
Yeah.
That is why we're all running around so afraid to, like, what happens if they don't love us? Like, what happens if
Yes.
we get rejected, right?
Yep.
A lot of times it's because we figured it out. We if we people please or we meet the needs of the adults around us, we show up for them instead of them showing up for us, all kinds of
Yes.
things, we
Mm.
develop these different parts. And what you said about going in, when you go in, you realize that everything you needed was always there, that
Yes.
there's a self that can nourish your system. Now, a
Yes.
6-year-old
Mm.
isn't supposed to have to do this, but
Right? Yes.
Yes.
right, okay. So technically, you're supposed to be depending on your parents, but we're going to move on. So, but
Yes.
but
Yeah.
self is there, self is there, and so you
Yeah.
realize I don't need all that, right?
Yeah.
And I've
Mm.
learned a lot, and so the self love dance kind of looks like this evolved 40, 50, 60-year old version saying, I got y'all, like
Yeah.
Yes.
6-year-old, 10-year-old,
Yeah.
15, 20-year-old, I've got you and you can lean into me and I
Mm.
am equipped to care for you. And then
Yes.
the healing starts to occur
Yes.
for those parts.
Yeah.
Hey, we just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about something very exciting that Debbie and I and our team have been working on for literally years. And that is our Cour Tools app, which is now available at the Google Play Store and at the Apple Store. And you can sign up for it now and you will get access to all the tools we've been talking about on the podcast.
And if you're an early adopter of Cour Tools, you can get a VIP price for $49 for a lifetime. That's
Lifetime.
Right.
Buy it once and we'll keep updating it too.
Yes. So we're super excited about this. Go to Apple Store, go to Google Play, and purchase it now.
Cour Tools, COUR, capital TOOLS.
Go get it.
It's beautiful.
And I have to say, it's this ongoing thing. So I've done piles and piles and piles of work, spiritually, emotionally, physically, like all of it.
Therapy.
All of it.
Yes.
Yeah, 30 years of therapy, like it's a lot. And so people go, oh, she just shows up like that, and that's just so not true. But
Right.
I wanted to tell this little story. So, I went to this soul spiritual workshop in Arizona a month ago, and I don't know if you know who Anita Morjani is, but she is someone who crossed over and came back.
Oh,
And
wow.
so as part of this workshop, it's called the soul work. And so 45 minutes, she says, we're closing the doors. There's 500 people there, and you're going to go and meet your soul. And I started having a panic attack. Like, oh no, I'm I'm pretty sure this is gonna be too much in a room of 50 or 500 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I forced myself to stay there and to do it. And it's like magic. But my God, I mean, you think about the amount of people in the world who are willing to do that work is
Yeah.
very small, right? It's very
Mm-hmm.
small and it's very difficult. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not like you just roll out of bed one day and go, oh, I'm gonna look in the mirror and I'm gonna love myself, right?
Right.
That's not how it happens, right? Right?
No. Yeah. And that's amazing, a big commitment to say I am going to meet myself, right? I am going to meet
Yeah.
my soul. Yeah, and so and then love, like find love and compassion and care and curiosity instead of criticism and judgment, right? I
Yes.
am
Yeah.
going to access the highest levels of energy and
Yes.
Right.
and really be with me and be okay,
Be okay.
right? Be
Yes.
okay, right? And no, people, we escape, we avoid, we seduce ourselves with all kinds of substances, we do all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things
Mm-hmm.
because what do you do with these parts and this pain? And you're right, it's a lot of work and it's worth it. And you will lose
Yes.
Yes.
people along the way who really
Yes.
liked you the way you were.
Yes.
So
Sure.
I always prepare people for
Sure.
that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they signed up for that other version, so
Yeah.
and they
The
didn't do
people
all the,
pleaser.
yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't do the therapy. They didn't go in the room with 500 people. They are still them. And
Yes.
so you may lose them, but when you start to, like you said, turn inward and access self and access higher energy and access that healing, you're operating on a different frequency anyway, and you start to attract alignment and
Yes.
the love that you wanted and the right kinds of healed individuals will show up. And so it's just making space and recalibrating. So there was nothing to fear, but that's
Yes.
hard to know when you're
Right.
in it, right?
Yeah.
Because your 6-year-old is deathly afraid,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
That's
Yeah.
So
so
yeah.
important. And what you're saying, that it's worth it, because it is hard. It can be really challenging. And
Yeah.
I want to get a little bit woo-woo here if we are already there, but I'm
Yes.
look I'm looking at what's going on in the world, and I'm seeing people suffering, people stressing, and I really believe, and I know I've said this before, and it's not I didn't I didn't come up with this, but I'm hearing it from people that I really trust and believe in, is that something is being something is being birthed in the world right now, that these old paradigms, around patriarchy and power over and all of these old ways of being are dying. It's time. It's time for them to go. And just like anything that's dying, they're clinging. They're fighting back. And so it's ugly and painful right now. And it
Yes.
feels so hard. And I feel that for all the world. I see that for transgender community and for people losing their jobs and women and people of color and indigenous people and all the people who are just being pushed down and we thought we were making progress and then we just got pushed. Just keep the faith that something is unfolding, and so keep doing this personal work, keep showing up for yourself,
Hmm.
pause and look at it and keep walking through it. And what we're talking about, take care of yourself, because it is this long game of we're working towards something better. We're walking through it. We hold each other up. When
Hmm.
you see someone next to you who needs a hand, you give them a hand, and then when you fall, hopefully they're there, someone else is there to pull you up. But it is part of something bigger unfolding, and
Yeah.
Yes.
hopefully that gives people some hope, because if you get hopeless or if you're in despair,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Hmm.
Well, I
that just
think,
shuts you down.
self-love is is a form of discipline, right? That
Mhm.
we have to have for ourselves, right? It's something that you do every day. And it's going to be different for every single person on the planet, right? Not everybody's doing 45-minute meditations daily, or whatever, but it is a form of discipline. And Marci and I continue to talk about tools and the things we have, to
Mhm.
go inward and to do some work. That doesn't mean you have to spend 30 years with a therapist.
Mm-mm.
It could mean spending some time with Dr. Tiffany for sure, because some people are just unaware of this.
Yeah.
But I think it is the highest form of self-love, is just having some discipline, to make sure that you're showing up for yourself every day. Right.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
one little way, whether you hydrated yourself for the day, give yourself a pat
Yeah.
on the back. I remember to drink all
Yeah.
my water. Like, it's a
Yeah.
good night's sleep. It doesn't have to be, getting a massage every day either. It's
No.
just like, what are just the little things that you could do to show up for yourself every day,
I totally
right?
agree. I love that concept of the discipline piece of it. I think they were uh, interviewing Venus. Is Venus or Serena? One of them was talking about discipline and how
Mhm.
that has given her the life that she has because she was able to tap into being a disciplined athlete, right? And
Yeah,
I think you're right. I don't think we need to be, top tier, tennis players, but I think
Mhm.
just tapping into doing those little things. I tell people constantly, just setting a bedtime, just having the discipline to have a bedtime so that your body
yes,
can heal and get through
Yeah.
all the sleep stages and give you what you need to face the next day so that you're not flying off the handle and now mired in all of these emotions that you feel regret and shame around, right? And then you
Right.
are battling loving yourself because you showed up in a way that wasn't loving.
right,
I totally agree, and I think discipline can sound like a bad word for people. It can feel punitive.
yeah,
Right.
Um, but I had a client this morning I was working with, and I've had her for a long time, and she's had some great progress with her areas she struggles in. And she had just had a month where things were kind of really clean and on track, and she had
hmm,
come off of that. And I was grabbing her at a time where she was off, and she said, I felt so good. I felt so good when I was on track. I felt so good when I
yes,
was saying no to these things. I could think
Mhm.
clearer. I had rhythms. I was organized. Executive function. My brain was working. Um, and I don't like how I feel now, and I don't like the thoughts that I'm having now.
yeah,
Mm.
Right.
yeah,
And she's always thought of discipline as a punitive experience, and
yeah,
it's loving. It can be
Yes.
yes,
truly loving, right?
Right.
yes,
It doesn't have to be a punitive experience. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
yeah,
I love
Hmm.
that too, because it just kind of demonstrates she's making her progress. Now she's seen that. Now it's something that she's like, oh, that's good for me. And it, like you say, it becomes less about punitive and more about I'm taking care of myself by doing this, and now I feel better. And it's not always just this, I learn it and then I just go like this. It's this, right? But
Yeah,
we keep putting one foot in front of the other, and we're kind
Yeah.
with ourselves and we're gentle with ourselves. We know we're doing our best, and when we know better, then we can do better. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, and there will always be obstacles, right? Just this,
Hmm.
it's not this linear thing that I have done. Like, right,
No.
like I'm way up and I'm crashing and I'm way up and I'm crashing. And like it,
Yeah.
there's a big piece of that. But
Life.
it makes me think of I've been reading the Mel Robbins book, Let Them
Yes.
Theory. Have you read that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Done. Yep.
It
Yeah.
sounds
So
so
amazing.
silly and so
Yeah.
simple,
Yeah.
but it is. And she mentions, like, if you think this book is about them, you gotta go back and reread the
Oops.
book. Right?
Let
It's
me.
Yeah.
yeah, let
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And let me show up and make choices.
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think that's especially women, showing up for yourself, making choices that you know are for your best self, for your highest
Hmm.
self, for your child, for your soul, like whatever it is,
Yes.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but yeah.
often I'll have women come in referencing her work. Yeah, because they're trying to find a way to get permission to
Yes.
Mm.
say no, to take care of themselves, to have those
Yes.
boundaries, to and I think, one thing I think we're not always, because I think, I mentioned this client and her journey, and then you two also spoke to the up and down process, right?
Mm.
And anticipating that you're going to mess it up. You're anticipating you're going to get it wrong, anticipating the bad feelings that come along,
Yeah.
the flying off the handle and all of those things. And even as you're using the let them theory, women are so surprised by how intense those parts are, how
Yes.
resistant,
Hmm.
how it can feel brutally, awfully painful to speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can
Hmm.
feel like your inside. It's like it's just like it doesn't make any sense that it is
Yes.
Yeah.
this hard to
Been
let them.
hardwired.
Yeah,
Hardwired.
it
Yeah.
Yeah.
really is like a birthing of a new version of you,
Yes.
Exactly.
and I think people can be terrified when we talk about not people pleasing, right? And I think we get this grand concept, but in our bodies we feel really bad. We feel really wrong and really off, and
Yeah.
it's hard to overcome that somatic experience of like,
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, I've got to say no,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
Well,
going
it's
to
the
be
wor
disappointed. Yeah.
yeah, worrying about what other people think, right? Like that, I
Yes.
think is especially for women,
Yeah.
that's hard. We're always
Mhm.
comparing and
Hmm.
contrasting our motherhood,
Yeah.
our parenthood, our childhood. Like we're always
Yeah.
doing all that, and that
Mhm.
part has to go away. It just
Yeah.
has to go away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think to your point earlier, I think people pleasing means that we are attuned. It can mean that we have empathy. It can mean that
Yeah.
we are good caretakers. It's just not supposed to drive the seat of consciousness.
Right.
It's
Yes.
Right.
not supposed to be driving our bus,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
so it informs our higher self, right? And we're aware, but that it's dangerous when these parts drive. And so what we
Hmm.
always say, because people will get a little concerned about like becoming, bitchy or killing off a part, and like it's just like,
Yeah.
and it's like you can keep her, she just can't drive. Okay, like stop
Yes.
letting her
Yes.
drive. She's driving everything everywhere, and it's a mess. So and as someone who has navigated this whole experience very personally, the autoimmune
Hmm.
disorder, the lupus, the like
Yeah.
figuring out fibromyalgia, and like, you mean this is because I'm a people pleaser and because I'm a perfectionist? Oh
Hmm.
my,
Uh,
not worth it. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I also understand. it is really hard, and it takes the parts recalibrating and trusting that you've got them. You've got
Yeah.
them. And then they won't hijack you so much.
Yes.
And so you can say, let them, and then let me, right?
Yes.
So let them be upset. Let them ask me 4 more times and let me play broken record. You know what I mean? Let
Yes.
me lovingly, because I have my people pleaser, she's still there, lovingly
Yeah.
say, no, I'm just not available to do that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
but I
today.
know you're going to be okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that choosing yourself is self-love.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
and that's what it looks like. And I understand what I'm asking women to do in this journey. And that good girl health tax is no joke. You are saving your life. And I tell
Yes.
my moms, because I end up with their daughters as clients and patients, you're now saving hers,
Yes.
right? Because she needs to see you model this.
Yep.
So that's the motivation that you're looking for, because
Yeah.
I know if you can't do it for you, sometimes you can do it for somebody else. And so I
Yep.
need you to save you to model for her, so she
Yep.
doesn't keep passing this baton,
Yes.
know?
Breaking those generational
Breaking the
traumas.
chains.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
love how you speak about it, Dr. Tiffany. You make it so clear, and it's so relatable. You really have such a gift for this. I know, like
Oh,
for me, I just felt so much of what you said, and it's just,
Yeah.
I hope people are listening and just knowing that it's okay. And
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
thank
Mm.
you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. We
It
love
has.
you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hang in there, everybody.
Yeah.
Got
Yes.
this. And everybody gets permission to take care of themselves. We're
Yes.
hereby giving it to you.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Yes.
Everybody gets that.
Go do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, warrior moms. As we started this podcast, we had determined that part of what we were going to do is to create a community. So we have decided to take it to another level, and we have started our own Facebook community in addition to the Warrior Parent podcast, and it's called
From Chaos to Calm, a sanctuary for moms. Here's what it looks like. It's on Facebook right now. Please go and join it. And just to let you know, we're going to create our Blue Sky accounts right now. We're getting prepared as we watch this weird stuff go on in America. So we may be shifting the whole group to Blue Sky. Just be aware that we got you. We're going to start here. If this turns out to be not a safe place anymore on Facebook, then we will shift over. But what we're creating is a safe space where moms can show up and get information, get support, talk to each other about the things you're going through with your kids, the things you went through with your kids, maybe get some advice from moms, but also other experts. We're going to invite all of our guests and experts to join the group. I hope you will too. This is a place where you can show up and be seen and be heard and be safe. Mom's got you.
Nobody Trusts anyone more than moms. So let's do this.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your own ease and grace. Take some time every day to support your mental health. You deserve it, and it matters.
Today's journaling prompt is, everybody on the planet deserves, and then you just write. You let it come to you, whatever it is. Everybody on the planet deserves. Enjoy your journaling.
Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, which is a production of our nonprofit, Cour Experience, who also creates and distributes Cour tools. You can find us at courexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We want to thank Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the producers, or the financial supporters. I'm Debbie DiManno.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. Thanks for listening. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.